Anjali and me can handle the first wave of questions, and then we can figure out if we need the big guns for backup in a bit. But no, awesome. Thank you everyone for joining in. Really appreciate you kind of taking the time on an afternoon, which I'm sure everyone's very busy. So yeah, I wanted to take a moment to say thank you for joining. You know, the goal of this session is to just kind of open the floor to questions. Really the goal here is we're launching Fast Forward in a day and a half is what it is now. So April 1st. And we're here to just basically answer questions, help you kind of get a better handle on, you know, what we're trying to do, and in general, just so that's the goal here. So maybe we can just start popping up questions in the Q&A section. I'd love to kind of introduce and ask Anjali to kind of take a moment to walk us through Fast Forward, just touch on a few themes, and then we can just jump right into questions. And again, I think we're going to do this once a week. So we're doing this every Tuesday for the next 3 weeks at least. So don't worry, you can keep asking questions again and again, but over to Anjali.
Thank you so much, Nilesh, and welcome everyone to our Ask Me Anything on Fast Forward. And this is the first of, every Tuesday weekly, as we said, throughout April, which is the duration during which Fast Forward will be live. I thought it'll be good to kind of just set context and take you through a general overview of Fast Forward, why we set up and launched the program and what are the key tenets. Tell you a little bit more about the partnerships that we've built and why we believe Fast Forward is a best-in-class seed program in India today. And then we can open it up for Q&A. So any questions you have, feel free to start populating the Q&A and the chat box. And between Nilesh and myself, we'll try to answer as many of them as possible. Just to quickly give you an overview of Fast Forward itself, I have like a slide up, and I hope and trust that everyone can see my screen. Fundamentally, as Waterbridge, we are an early stage VC, and we invest up to 2.5 million, and we're typically the first institutional VC on the cap table of startups. And from our experience, and we've been in business since 2016, one of the key feedbacks that we received from the startup and the early stage founder community was that whether you're raising 250K or whether you're raising 2 million, just the amount of energy, effort, time that's required to raise and close your round is extremely long. It's unsettling, and the entire process, is also very indecisive. And founders find it very hard to kind of have a long pitch, and then you keep endlessly waiting to hear back from VCs on why they rejected.
So I think your screen may not be showing. I'm getting people saying they're not able to see it. So can you just reshare it once, your screen?
Sure. Just hold on. I'm just going to stop share and share again. Yep. Can you see it now, Nilesh?
Not yet, unfortunately.
Okay, hold on. No worries. Let me just continue because
sure.
I'm anyway putting up, or let me just quickly share this with you in parallel. It's literally off our LinkedIn page, and that's something I can do quickly. Sorry about this, guys. Just give us a minute.
So it's like, when you're pitching and you're doing a demo, and always everything that can go wrong does go wrong. This is the same feeling, and totally story of my life.
Let me get going in the meanwhile while Nilesh, you can put this up. So I was just telling you about how time consuming it is typically for founders to raise their first seed check, and therefore we took away from that, and we said, if we have to build like a standout seed program, what could we do differently to address some of these key problems? And I guess that was the basis and the reason for we launched Fast Forward. So Fast Forward aims at getting seed funding in an accelerated manner into the hands of the most deserving founders in less than 30 days. So our intent is that every application will get a response within 7 days. You will have a yes or no investment decision within 2 weeks. And when you pitch directly to decision makers at VC firms, so that there is not this long drawn, multiple rounds of pitching, information sharing, etc., etc. And so that everyone therefore has access to and has the ability to, there it is. I can see it, Nilesh, on my screen. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. Yeah. So we are trying to get up to 500K is what Waterbridge will commit into Fast Forward. And as you know, this year, the reason we're saying Fast Forward is best in class and bigger and better than last year is a single application gets you to pitch to up to 15 VC partners. So at your discretion and with founder consent, you will get the ability to pitch to 14 other VC partners and therefore the ability to raise beyond 500K from the rest of the group. And it comes back to one of the key feedback we got on how do we enable founders to raise larger rounds earlier and faster. Of course, this is COVID times, and we know that there is a pandemic, around us. It's now like into its 13th month, and therefore we have designed Fast Forward to be like a fully online and remote process. We use an application management system. We pitch on Zoom, and therefore no physical meetings are necessary. When we launched Fast Forward in the summer of 2020, exactly a year ago, we made 5 investments, and all of those were entirely virtually held meetings and remote processes. We didn't get to meet those founders in person for nearly 6 to 8 months, after closing, I would say. The other thing in terms of just, how do we make this a fair and transparent process? A lot of the founder feedback was also around the fact that you sign up exclusivity with an institutional VC, and then post DD, and when the dev talks reach you, you realize that there are a lot of terms that surprisingly spring up. And so we thought it's only fair to publish our key asks, what our round dynamics would be, the fact that Waterbridge would like to lead the investment round. And all our key investment terms have in fact been published on the Fast Forward website. So I would encourage you to head to fastforward.waterbridge.vc, and we'll share this in the chat box soon. And just have a look at our key terms so that you know well before you're pitching to us what our starting negotiation position at least is. And not just that, this year, beyond the 15 VC partners, we have also tied up, Nilesh, could you just scroll down if you don't mind to the next page here? Yeah, thank you so much. So this year, we've also partnered with a whole lot. You can accelerator partnerships. And I would say gives you like an accelerated GTM, not just in India, but global and overseas markets as well. And these are, the best of the best businesses that enable you to just get a faster PMF for a product market fit. And this also gets you like a VIP access, if I may, into their own specialized industry focused domain specific accelerator programs. We also have a bunch of early stage entrepreneurship encouraging programs. So we have Incubate, for example, that's a women entrepreneurship focused accelerator. We have we've tied up with both the Delhi NCR and the Bangalore chapters to share and to be part of some of their own startup and founder panels, founder networking sessions, etc. And of course, we have the biggest names from Microsoft, NetApp, Cisco, and Accenture, and they will be part of the Fast Forward process. And again, none of this is forced on founders. The application, when it opens on April 1, you'll ask you if you're interested in engaging with any of them. And if it's a yes, we're more than happy to make these introductions and refer you into their programs. If we can just scroll down, and these are some of our SaaS and cloud partners. So this year at Fast Forward, it doesn't just stop with Waterbridge investing up to 500K in equity and funding. We have also enabled credits, discounts, and access to the startup programs of some of the best in class like cloud and SaaS companies and SaaS tools, globally today. So we have everybody from Freshworks, AWS, HubSpot, Segment, Miro. We've tried to put like an amazing group of SaaS tools over there so that the first 6 months you focus on building and we try to enable the rest. So this is very quickly a brief overview, and happy to now start taking questions from any of you. Nilesh, back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So just very quickly, I think one last thing that I wanted to add is, what I'm most excited about on Waterbridge is that, everyone that comes through the Fast Forward program is actually a full part of the portfolio. I think that's the part that I love the most is that, it's not like you kind of have to graduate out of Fast Forward, then look at the big fund. This is like you're directly in. And so I was looking at a couple of the questions that have come in. So I'm just going to try and answer. I think there's one which says investment philosophy, and it would be great if you could ask the question in the Q&A section. That way I have a better handle on it. So Sanjay, I see your question on investment philosophy and what stage. So very quickly, I think the investment philosophy that we have is really not very different from the rest of what Waterbridge does. So we're a sector agnostic fund. We love to be kind of the first institution on the cap table, and we've outlined 6 sectors on our website. And I would actually encourage everyone to have a moment and I'll put the links in the chat box here, but. We've actually listed out sectors that are appealing to us, the type of stage and type of companies that look, that we are excited by. So there are a few sectors in kind of the space that we are super excited by. Of course, that doesn't mean that we won't look at other sectors, but we've tried to encapsulate what excites us the most within these blog posts. I'm going to put that on the put that on the chat box here. But I think another question that we have here is, what are the 2 brackets of investment? The 2 brackets that we have are 250K to 500, and the criteria to decide. I think here it's kind of a moving target to say that we can do anything within this range, and it's actually the founder's option to understand what or to decide what the right amount is. So based on your business plan, based on the metrics that you're trying to hit over the next 12, 18 months, maybe 250K is the right amount, maybe 500K is the right amount. Maybe you'd like to cobble together a larger round with some more of our partners. That's also possible. So I think the answer here and the criteria is actually in the founders side of the equation to understand, what is right for my business? How much money do I really need? And what is the associated kind of, amount of money that I want to raise? So maybe we'll just do one question,
Yeah.
Sanjali. So I'll hand
Sounds
over the
good.
next couple to you. Yeah.
So again, just request everyone to put their questions in the Q&A. So it's just easier for us to handle all of this. I'm just going to take the one from Deepak Thomas here. Thanks for joining us, everyone, once again in the middle of, at least in Bangalore, what seems like a fairly gloomy afternoon/evening. What's the average fundraise per startup for your last cohort? I think great question here, Deepak. So last year, by the way, we didn't do up to 500K. We did slightly lesser. Our median or our sweet spot last year was roughly around 350K. And just taking away from what Nilesh said and to add on to that, Fast Forward portfolio companies are part of the main fund of Waterbridge. What this means is that even though you say pick 250K or 350K, and of course there's a dilution and evaluation element to this, but if you're hitting all your milestones and if you're building the business way investing like tremendous tailwinds, then we do reserve follow-on capital for you. So in almost I would say 3 of the 5 within 6 months last year, we were already doubling down on some of them and investing additional capital. So Fast Forward for us is just the beginning of your journey with Waterbridge, and we will continue to invest. And we typically, across our portfolio, we continue to invest up to Series C at least. And so, like I said, this is just the beginning. And as long as you're hitting all your milestones, we will continue to invest follow on.
Awesome. Can you grab the next one? I'm just going to put on the chat box the links.
Is there any cap on valuation? Well, to begin with, one of the tenets, at least of Fast Forward, is that we are fair and transparent with our terms, and we just wanted to be straightforward on what our expectation is, at least on the percentage equity that we want to pick up in some of your companies. And yes, I think it's fair to say that's our starting negotiation position, but it really depends on the stage of your company, how you've built your business. Is it just past MVP? Is it, is it just an idea stage? Is it past MVP? Is it beta? Do you have early customers? Are you revenue earning? And we would definitely consider some of those factors in terms of the stage and nature of your business, as well as the fact that is it just Waterbridge Ventures in the lead, and will we be the solo investor? Or are you interested in partnering and pitching to the 15 VC partners that we have, and we're therefore indeed building a larger round and might have to relook at the valuation? But I think valuation is definitely subjective and dependent on some of these factors, and would definitely encourage you to use the last section in the application, which is in fact tell us anything else that we might need to know. So if you are, for example, already speaking to some VCs outside of Fast Forward, outside of the partners, of our VC partners, do drop that in as a note for us, and happy to build rounds together. As Waterbridge, we are typically, we like to lead investments, and we typically are always the lead investor into rounds. But we're more than happy to build rounds together with other VCs, with other angels, accelerator programs, etc. Yeah. The next one is Akshat Baheti. What kind of experience are you looking in entrepreneurs, and are we still graduating from college? Yeah, Akshat, I think I spoke about this in the article I wrote about, like how do we decide so quickly? And it's a great question here, because I'm very kind of happy and proud more than anything to mention that at Waterbridge, we have no positive or negative, for that matter, biases against founder backgrounds, pedigrees, etc. We have college dropouts, we have fresh graduates, we have tenured professionals, we have global CXOs, we have second-time startup founders. So yeah, the question to that is, if we believe that if you can convince us as to why you are best suited to solve the problem that you're targeting, and what's your right to win in that market, we have no positive or negative biases. So more than happy to fund students, fresh university graduates, and the like. Yeah.
Awesome. I think
Anonymous attendee.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm just going to finish up. I'll let you take this, and I'll take the next.
Sure. On crypto, all right. So I would say that, again, in terms of sector preferences, I have again covered this in the LinkedIn note that we've put, and Nilesh will just kind of ping that to you. There it is. It's just come up in the chat box. And what we've presented there is the 6 different sectors that Waterbridge is bullish on, I would say, and where our current investment preferences lie. So as long as you fall into one of these sectors, we're more than happy to evaluate and give you a serious look under Fast Forward. Having said that, I think it's worth mentioning that the common denominator across all our 24 investments so far has been tech-led disruption. So if you're on the consumer side, we love businesses that are riding on the Indian internet economy, that are, like, I'd say, platform-led, don't come with very operationally intensive offline distribution channels, etc. And if you're on the B2B side, whether you're serving the mid-market, the SME market, India, global, we love all those models. I think tech and tech-led disruption, and it's a question that we always ask ourselves while evaluating deals, as to how are you using tech to differentiate and to build a moat for yourselves? And that's key and critical for us. And therefore, I would say, yes, like we would definitely look at it. It's currently not one of our 6 top priorities, but I can tell you that there are always exceptions. For example, we typically always say that we don't do hardware, and that hardware and IoT is hard. But we 2 years ago did take a seed bet in a cooking robo company called Julia. So while we do put out our investment preferences and our sector preferences rather every year, it's fair to say that if we meet like an eclectic group of founders who can really convince us on how large this opportunity and how scalable the opportunity is, we have taken exceptions and made these bets. Nilesh,
awesome,
over
cool.
to you.
I'm gonna take a second to kind of outline that I've shared 3 links on the chat. I think the first 2 are LinkedIn posts, and then the last one is a link to our Fast Forward website. So you'll find a lot of kind of what we are referring to within these links. I'd encourage you to kind of just take a moment to look at them when you have some time. But that gives you a good, we've tried to put as much content out there to be like, look, how do we demystify the craziness that happens? So I think that would be very useful, and many of these questions, maybe you'll get some more insight there as well. So I'm going to start off with Sanjay's question here on the list about how we can help besides the money. And I think in general, most VCs you ask will say, look, it's very important for us to be able to add value, and a value add construct is very important. So I think, again, like I mentioned, fast forward is a way into the fully grown portfolio. So whether it's connecting to ecosystem partners, whether it's opening doors with larger companies, it's hard to give kind of like an overarching answer to this, but really our network is your network. As part of the Waterbridge family, anything we can do, from like hiring to making business level connections to making ecosystem connects, or even connecting within our portfolio, everything is kind of on the table. And really, once you're part of this fully blown portfolio, then we're happy to kind of jump in, roll up our sleeves. And there are some businesses where there is a bit more of kind of Waterbridge's help, and we can like jump in and help immediately. There are other businesses where, look, the founders would like a little bit more space. So we try and tailor make our kind of value add construct to each type of founder, to each type of team. But I think the short answer to it is that we're really happy to kind of answer and any call that you have from our networks, from our perspective, outside of course the funding piece.
Yeah, and in fact, we have spoken about this is in fact a question in the application form, and one thing we promised during all our AMA sessions is that we will give you a sneak peek on the kind of questions that we're asking in the applications. So in fact, one of the questions towards the end is, what are your expectations from Waterbridge beyond capital? And we are asking founders this question in terms of, what do you look for in your investor beyond capital? And in one of our LinkedIn notes out there, in fact, we have laid out our value add approach. Our value add approach is also published. Internally, we call it the 5 C's, and how we deliver on the 5 C's. I think the 5 C's very quickly are community, cap table, competency, compliance, and cross-border. And just 1 minute on each. In terms of communities, exactly what Nilesh spoke about. It is the fact that we try to enable you to find your first key talent, your hire, your first customer, your first vendor, your first partner, and just bring about this 360-degree kind of network into your company as quickly as possible. In terms of cap table, I think one thing we're very proud at Waterbridge, and you can see the portfolio section of our website for this and validate it yourselves, is that with no exception, every company in the portfolio has gone on to raise external funding from global strategics and VCs alike within a 12 to 15 month time frame. So we actively enable you to build follow-on rounds to curate your cap table, enable those introductions, and work with you to build your pitch decks and your stories. And you can see across our portfolio that we have the biggest VCs from Sequoia and Accel and Matrix and Ceph. And we also have significant global strategics as well on our cap table. So that's the second C with cap table. Then it's competency. I think, quickly following through on the sector approach that I outlined earlier, all of us, we're 6 investment professionals at Waterbridge. Each of us come with very strong operational, entrepreneurial, as well as investing backgrounds in these 6 sectors. So the partner you pitch to will be a sector specialist. And therefore, you don't have to spend time explaining, the nuances of your business model. I would say we understand your sector, and you're mapped to a partner who's a sector specialist. And that's the kind of competency we build. And beyond just internally at Waterbridge, we connect you to the best of best advisors, help you build your mentor network, your advisory board, and the like, and bring you high level industry and domain expertise again to your company. And the sooner the better, I would say. Compliance, yes, we're an institutional VC, and while many will sulk saying that we come with our own bells and whistles, I think it's good that even through Fast Forward, you will see that you will work with a top tier law firm. We will conduct a full-fledged legal DD on your company before we wire. And throughout, when you're part of our portfolio, that's the reason we say that you are an intrinsic part of our portfolio and not like a second-grade citizen within Waterbridge. So we do enforce, I would say, very strong financial reporting, corporate governance, ESG frameworks. And I think this sets you up well as you raise additional capital and as you build and scale the business. And finally, cross-border, our 5th C, which is just about enabling a global GTM. Almost 7 of our companies are headquartered outside India. We also have 2 large enterprise SaaS companies that are building out of India for global markets. We have Pocket Pills, for example, that's selling into the North American markets and has their DevOps and their tech teams here based in India. So we are, again, as a firm, well designed, I would say, to enable some of these cross-border networks, introductions, hire your first few overseas talent, resources, etc. So that's very quickly on our value add approach. And again, this is on one of the two LinkedIn notes that we have out there, and you could peruse it at leisure later on. Yeah. Amal,
Awesome.
PS, I guess this is.
Yeah, you can
sorry,
take that.
What's the median tenure of the business by which WBV invested in these companies? I think by design, Fast Forward is meant to be a seed program. So by the way, like I said, we're 6 investment professionals, and all of us dedicate ourselves to Fast Forward all through April. And the reason we do that is because we know that we kind of agree with founders when they say that whether you're investing 250K or 2 million, it's the same amount of energy and effort, not just from the founder side, but from the VC side as well. And therefore, we do seed stage deals dedicatedly once a year via Fast Forward. And therefore, when we say seed, I guess by definition, we hope and we encourage you to be past idea stage. We set this out again in our application. There is a question that clearly asks, like, what's the stage of your company? Do you have early adoption? Do you have early customers, paying customers? Are you like, have you got like early PMF? These are some of the questions that we ask. I would say that we expect you to at least be past MVP, have an MVP, have early adopters, if not paying customers. Of course, I would say 95% of the cases, seed stage Fast Forward companies are pre-revenue. We also look at pre-product, but I would say more exceptionally than that being the norm. Yeah. You could take the next one, Nilesh. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll take the next one about the final list of startups. So Deepak, I think in general, I don't think we're running this as a way to kind of just kind of take, it's not a batch process. I think what we like to do is kind of talk to all of our, based on the type of deal, based on the type of, founder interactions we have, we may or may not disclose all the deals. I think last year we did 5. And they weren't all announced in a batch. I think based on the business requirements, we may announce 1 or 2. So the final list will eventually come out, but I think for the most part, we're just treating this as a normal investing process. So sometimes we'll see in VC investing that, you want to keep a deal, in stealth mode a little bit longer. So it's not necessary that we do always kind of announce every single deal. But I think that's the short answer to it, is like, there's no final list, there's no date, there's no demo day. It's all just a way for us to kind of dedicate our time and make sure we're as responsive and we're as reactive to kind of the founder time and need, because again, like we mentioned, it's time is of the essence. So how do we kind of turn this around as quickly as possible? And then everything from there is really just a discussion with the team on, what is the right thing, if it is to kind of announce and build up a little bit of, awareness around the fact that, we've partnered, that's something we're happy to do. In other cases, maybe keep it stealth for a little bit longer. That's also happy to go down that path as well. So I think that's the answer to this. Amal, I'm going to take your other question on the top 3 factors as well. I think obviously with seed stage investing, there's a huge focus on really the founders. I think one thing that we've learned over time is, the business may come and go and change a little bit up and down, but the founders are central and they're the most important people. So I think if I had to tell you a big number 1 will be the founder journey, what they've done, why this space is important to them. And I think Waterbridge in particular, one of the things that I'm most proud of is we spend a lot of time understanding this founder journey. Why this space? Why did you want to do it here? Why now? Like, all these questions are very important. And instead of just jumping into the deck, we always love to understand the human behind the story as well. So first, number 1 is always going to be the team. So the team, how does the dynamic work? I think there are a few questions also about solo founders. So I'll kind of cobble that in as well. Is that, it always helps to have more than one founder, primarily from a risk perspective. From a venture capitalist perspective, it's always good to kind of back a solid team rather than just one person. So I think our preference is to kind of have more than one founder. That's strongly kind of a plus point. But again, there's nothing to say that we won't back a single founder. It's just that, obviously there is that element of risk also built in, that it's one person. I think so. Number 1 would be right on the top, will definitely be the team. I think obviously the space, and one of the things that one of our partners, Manish, always says is horses for courses. Why is this team perfectly built for this race? I think the sector is also very important. And then from there, obviously, things like the product, the MVP, the initial traction, what the vision moving forward is. I think those are all very important in kind of our evaluation of a startup. And maybe, Anjali, if there's anything else you want to add to this.
Maybe I'll stay true to our promise of giving sneak peeks at the application form. And I thought it's a good segue to bring that in. And I think I missed the name of the person who asked the question, but I would like to say, just following through, as you literally fill out the application, you will definitely noticed that we have, I think, 3 to 4 broad sections. One is, of course, the founders. Nilesh spoke about it, so I don't want to elaborate more, but definitely that's key. Then we have this entire section on the business model itself. For example, questions around what are the key, metrics that you would track for your business today and at scale. If you were to spend marketing dollars acquiring customers, what would be like the top keywords that you would spend your money on? And our intent really is to help us understand the way you are viewing your business today and say 5 years down the line at scale, and get convinced on the size of the opportunity. Is this like a real world problem? That's another question we always ask ourselves. And how large and scalable is it? How much cash burn is required to make it large and scalable? And what are the tech-led competitive moats? I think these are the areas in which we'd like to try and convince ourselves. And of course, as Nilesh mentioned, founders are always top at seed stage. But these are some of the areas that you will see questions pop up in the application form. And finally, I would just like to add that because the bet on founders is so critical at this early stage for us, and alluding to our previous point on just network, we do actively ask for referrals. We are not one of those VCs who'll ref check you behind you, but up ahead, we ask you to give us 3 referrals. This is also part of the application. And we would really encourage you to share people that you've worked with before, or people that you've raised, say, angel funding from, because that lends like amazing credibility to your application and also helps us understand the strength of your own networks and the kind of connects that you bring to the table, and therefore comes back to the question of how much value add can we as Waterbridge bring in beyond and above and beyond your own network. Yeah. Sanjay, how are you evaluating the value of a startup as MVP, as there is hardly traction and user base? I think nothing much beyond what we already mentioned. Like, we would really double down on the founders. Why are you best suited to be building this business and solving for this problem? How are you thinking of GTM? How are you thinking of attracting early customers? And have you done any unpaid pilots, for example, if you're B2B, or do you have like a free product and some kind of early adoption? At least, like I said, we're not hung up on pre-revenue. It could still be like a free version of the product that you're offering your customers. And another key thing is we look for, I would say, primary research and primary critical customer insights that you have sought from the market. And that's something, again, we ask for in terms of what's been early feedback. And even prior to starting this business, what are those key insights that you had that are unique to you and unique to building this business? And we encourage you to share some of that feedback. So if you're an EdTech company, for example, have you spoken to like 100 parents who meet your persona, or 100 kids that meet your persona? Have you conducted workshops? Have you had, like, say, a group on Facebook, for example, and seen some early traction there? And we encourage you to share some of that primary research and feedback with us, so we know that in a company avatar, there are reasonable tailwinds to what you're setting out to build. So, yeah. Nilesh, you want to take the anonymous one?
Yeah, I think.
I think we did that already.
Yeah, I think Abhishek's question was answered as well. Abhishek's question on how do you evaluate MVP stage companies? I think you've also captured that in your response. So I might jump to the next one, which is the pre-seed versus seed round. Honestly, the naming of the round is is one thing. I don't think we're very hung up on what you call the round. I think in general, on the journey of kind of starting off to kind of raising significant amounts of capital on the path, we'd love to. This is what we anticipate as the first round. So when we say seed, is like this is the first institutional investor round. You can call it pre-seed, and the alphabet keeps changing. Series A becomes tomorrow Series B. Tomorrow Series B becomes someone's seed stage deal. It's all over the place. So the actual nominal name of the round is not so important as much as the quantum you're raising, what your milestone target is, and typically one of the things we like to encourage is to say, look, what is the target that we can have 12 to 18 months down the line, to say, look, we've raised amount of capital, maybe it's a seed or pre-seed, and you want to go somewhere in 18 months. What do those goalposts look like? What are the tangible kind of metrics and or user feedback or market feedback that you can get? I think that's the important journey that this kind of tranche of money will help you achieve. And typically it's just about evaluating and proving a hypothesis. So I think I would encourage you to kind of think of it in that way. The name is not very important, I don't think.
All right, I think it's my turn then. I'm just marking that as done. I think the first part of your question, again, we've spoken in sufficient detail. Do ping the group again if you feel you need a specific answer. I'll take the second part, which I think hasn't been addressed before, which is portfolio construction / competition. And I think it's a great question, by the way. And it is important for us that we do definitely look at portfolio construction while evaluating a startup. And I would say it's not just in terms of directly competing with our portfolio, but we also ask ourselves if this company is addressing the same target audience as some other company is. So while it's not a sacrosanct no, I would say on the consideration list, we would probably put you a stage or two lower if you are a directly competing company with our existing portfolio. And I would say it's harder probably to raise from us. But we currently, in all fairness and keeping true to our fair and transparent spirit, I think we should say that currently across the 24 investments that we have made, there are no competing bets, and we don't intend to have any competing bets at the moment, at least. Yeah. You want to take Deepak's question, Nilesh?
Awesome. Yeah, happy to answer Deepak's question. I think I'm just going to say one of the companies that I'm really excited by, which is kind of in the marketplace, is Business. You'll find more details about Business on our website, but the B2B is what we're calling it, and it's a very exciting company. So I think you'll find a lot of information on Business on the website, and they're from fund to company. So definitely would encourage you to check it out. I think I'm also going to take the next question on the.
Sorry, I'm just going to shamelessly put a plug for some of our women founders, and also speak about Tanushree at Doubtnut and what like an amazing business that we have over there, and Prakalpa at Atlin as well, and of course all the amazing women at Big Fat Phoenix and Priya at Chalo. But yeah, quick plug in and shout.
I was answering an aggregation question.
Oh, sorry, I missed in my enthusiasm. I missed the part that was the aggregation space. But City Mall, by the way, is also worth mentioning, especially because they've been trending on LinkedIn all of this week, thanks to the round of the 11 million they just raised from Accel. So I think City Mall is worth mentioning. But
yeah, I think I'll take the question about Southeast Asia. I think as an Indian-based, AIF, our preference and really our focus through Fast Forward is to actually back companies incorporated in India. And to give you some insight, there is a SEBI regulation which actually has only a certain section of our fund can go to overseas investments. So I think the short answer is, our strong preference, and actually this is one of those qualifiers, is we're only looking to invest into Indian domiciled companies. So Southeast Asia, if there's a flip structure or something like that, then maybe that's something we can explore. But the short answer is Indian-based companies is what that's the goal in our head, is to kind of back Indian companies here.
I'll just quickly add to that and saying that the key tenet of Fast Forward is indeed to be fast. And I think we are a domestic rupee fund, we're a homegrown domestic rupee fund. As Nilesh said, there are a bunch of SEBI approvals, which typically take longer than the 30-day promise that we've made to founders. Having said that, as part of the main fund, we do have like 7 companies in the portfolio that are incorporated outside of India. So you could definitely Fast Forward, like I said, is our dedicated seed program that we run in the summer every year. But please do reach out to us and apply to us as part of the normal decision cycle. And we will definitely consider non-India HQ investments as well. And the only reason we don't do it under Fast Forward is because we can't keep up to the time SLAs, I would say. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll take the next question on social impact versus business explanation. I think in general, when we're evaluating companies, obviously there are multiple lenses that you look at. Like social impact is one of them, business impact is another. But I think purely from our perspective, when we're evaluating companies at Fast Forward, we're looking at it as a business first. So I think we're keen to understand the business. We're keen to understand how the economics work. Why is this a business that needs to be built? And of course, there is a very, very important element of also understanding impact. But I don't think that we have a lens to say, impact is 80%, business is 20%, or anything like that. I think in general, we're evaluating it on the merits of the business, and of course, social impact and the way that it's kind of influencing people in and around, and the business that is generating is a huge factor for us as well. But I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I think a business explanation to kind of understand what the company does, and then a second lens of saying, look, the social impact that comes with it is the way that we would evaluate it. I think Nandita's question on investment from friends and family, and maybe the question here is, moving forward, will they still be a part of the story? I think yes. The short answer is yes. We do. Kind of everyone who's on your cap table will be a part of it, and will be new investors coming in. So we have seen cases in the past, and a few of our companies earlier where there was a friends and family round or an angel round, where the company has raised some capital in the past, but those are from individuals. The next stage is when we come on the board and when we come onto the cap table, we will coexist, of course, with the existing investors. So I think definitely will still be on the cap table and part of the story here. So I think the next question, Anjali, you want to take it? Should I take it?
Sure.
The B2C EdTech.
I think the EdTech with a 1K ticket. I guess, again, I'm just trying to see what I can add to what we've already said, but the question really, I'm afraid, is that it depends. This is fairly subjective. It's great if you already have paying customers with a ticket as high as 1K, but it's not just revenue and ticket size is the only metric that we look at. We also look at what is the customer acquisition cost and how much have you kind of spent in terms of both brand as well as perf marketing in order to acquire that customer, and typically what your CAC LTV ratios are. And so I would say very hard to put out a number, but just the fact, and I'm assuming that you already have revenue earning, is great traction for Fast Forward. So I would say definitely go ahead and apply and do kind of, we always like to look at, especially for high burn consumer businesses, for us CAC LTV as well as unit economics is fairly important. So if you could just make sure that your pitch deck has a slide that kind of covers what we call like CM1, CM2, GP, would help us just understand your business better before you jump onto that pitch / Zoom call. And very quickly there, I guess, another thing in terms of the application, the way it has been designed is that it's been designed to kind of get all the standard questions and answers out of the way, so that when you indeed jump onto that Zoom pitch with us, we actually focus on the stuff. We don't have to like spend time, whether it's on introductions or founder backgrounds or where you previously worked or where you graduated from, or like the basic stuff around market, etc. And then we actually get to understand you as founders, get to know you a little better, as well as deep dive into specifics about your business. So in many ways, it's a pre-read. The application is like pre-read for us to kind of frame and form our questions ahead of the pitch call, and therefore we make those 60 minutes very time efficient on both sides. So do fill out all questions. I think we have 41 when I last checked, and many of those questions are optional, but I would sincerely request you to take time out. It takes like roughly 11 minutes from the testing, at least, that we've figured, to fill out those 41 questions. And we like to back the most prepared founders, and for us, just giving us a complete application means that you've taken the trouble and the effort more than anything else to prepare yourself for the program. And I would say that incomplete applications are one of the top reasons for rejecting applications, and therefore whether it's optional or not, do fill out the application in entirety and share as much pre-read and as much information ahead of time.
Yeah, and I think I'll add to this with Amal's question, which is the next question. I think it's a good segue to talk about what we've tried to do in designing the application is saying, what are those kind of mundane, I guess not mundane, nothing is mundane really here, but like, what are those pieces of information that we can kind of take off the Zoom call? So I think another sneak peek into the application, there are YouTube videos, which kind of does your introduction, where you can talk about the business, where you can talk about your vision. So, it's what we've tried to do is kind of give you enough room within the application to highlight, what the business is today, what the business will be in the future, and kind of build that path, right? And as with anything else, storytelling is a huge part of kind of the journey. So, I would encourage you, Amal, to kind of really think about, what can you do across these different modes? So whether it's the deck, whether it's kind of your write-up, whether it's the YouTube video, what can you do to try and kind of cross those as many bridges as possible, so that when we get onto the call, and like Anjali said, we try and maximize those 60 minutes for everybody, whether it's the founder, whether it's for the entrepreneur as well, how do we kind of keep the really important crux questions for that piece? I think getting into any, giving an answer on like anything else to say, these are the small hacks, or, it's just KPIs, or it's just kind of the journey or the storytelling would be unfair. So I think in general, as a holistic piece, try and communicate as much as you can about the business. And I think that would really help in kind of taking us to a point where once we're on the Zoom call, then it's a lot more talking about the business and the real important questions rather than everything else. And my iPod just died.
Let me take that one while you will entrepreneurs get the opportunity to hear us if we misunderstood your business with the existing portfolio? Well, I think yes, we do. We're like I always joke that we're a full stack tech-led VC ourselves, and while we're doing a fully online digital remote process, there are I can assure you the humans end of the day processing the application behind. Very possible that this happens, but I will put it back on you to say that it's up to the founders to convince us about the how and the why. We only have the information that you are presenting and sharing with us. And many a times previously it has happened that we potentially or possibly misunderstood your business model to compete directly. But I would again encourage you to help us understand why you believe the business doesn't directly compete and therefore does not interfere with our portfolio construction. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll take Sanjay's question on the biggest learning in investing, and I think if you ask 4 of us or 6 of us, you might get 5 or 6 different answers. So I'll try and give you my 2 pieces. I think one of the things that's been very exciting for me is always the founders and really the journeys that have brought everyone here. So I consider it a huge privilege that on a day-to-day basis I get to meet very smart people like you guys and learn about a new space and a new kind of paradigm and get a glimpse into what the future looks like. But I think the biggest learning that the biggest learning that I've seen is, when you raise money, it's really to just test a hypothesis. So, everyone comes with a hunch, everyone comes with a vision, everyone comes with some insight, and every founder is really trying to use that money to establish, what is it that I know? What is it that I need to know to kind of validate this? And I think that puzzle has been the most exciting learning for me, is to really figure out, there's 16 different businesses in our first portfolio. There's 24 in our entire portfolio. Each one has their own hypothesis, and each one is using capital as a way of validating and checking those hypotheses. I think that's what's most exciting. I think that's a huge learning. And again, like I said, there's a lot that we can say in this answer, but I think I'll nominate that as my top, favorite learning is, how do you use capital to kind of validate a hypothesis, and how swiftly and clearly can you figure out tangible and quantifiable metrics that will help you identify these. I think that's been a fun part of the journey. Okay, I think we have one last question. Anjali, you want to knock the last one?
Yeah, I think I was just quickly doing a time check. So I guess it's a perfect, we have 9 more minutes. And we also have some in the chat. And if you don't mind, the guys posting in the chat, would love if you could just push all those questions in the Q&A, but we will try to come back to them later if not already answered previously. Out of the 15 VC firms, do we get to pitch to others? Only if the round is bigger. Again, I think Fast Forward has been designed not to be like a cohort-led application process. We don't force, whether it's portfolio or founder mentorship, whether it's pitching to our other VC partners, whether it's introductions to our corporate accelerators. None of this is forced on the founders. None of these are pre-set up, pre-scheduled sessions. All of this is at the founder's own volition and with founder consent. So in the application form, if you just want to pitch to Waterbridge, only take Waterbridge and just don't tick the other boxes. So we definitely ask founders before we share your pitch deck, your application with our partner VCs. So it's entirely at your option. The choice is yours, whether you want to pitch to us or to everyone. From a commitment perspective, Waterbridge is not committing more than 500K. So while we reserve follow-on funding, that is of course subject to you hitting all your milestones and building the business in the right way, if I may. So like I said, up to the founder's choice, but our commitment is not more than to $500,000 to begin with, at least. Yeah.
Sorry,
there is a second half as well, right? I'll just quickly do the second half, which is the MVP by 20th April. Yes, there is a component of FIFO, so first come, first serve, first in, first out. And I think the 7-day promise is based on when you first applied. So the sooner you apply, the faster you'll hear from us and so on and so forth. But hey, the idea is that Fast Forward is open all through April. So yes, even if you apply on the 30th of April, we will read your application completely and respond to you. The other great thing about Fast Forward, and I think thanks for reminding us about it, is that we're not coming into Fast Forward with like a min and max number of companies that we want to fund. So even if you receive a fantastic application on the midnight of 30th April, and that could be yours, we will give it as despite all the fatigue and sleepless nights relation we would have had through April. But our promise is that we will give it, like I said, an as enthusiastic a read as the guys who applied on April 1. So that's a very quick answer to your question. And saving the best for the last, you can take the last one, Nilesh, and I'll help move some of them from the chat. Yeah.
Got it. Yep, happy to answer the question you have here. So it says, how do we determine the ask for a startup looking for seed funding with MVP date? I think here this is again kind of another, and maybe you missed this. We had answered is that this is actually, we have two types. So we have the 250 to 500K as like extreme ranges, and you can find yourself anywhere in the middle. I would actually reverse this question back to the founder and saying, how much do you think you need? And typically the answer to that is a very nice, business plan to say, this is what I'm going to spend on, this is what I want to kind of build over the next 12 to 18 months. And therefore I need this amount of money. I don't think the answer is always more is more. I don't think that's also the right answer. So typically being able to say, this is my plan, this is what I want to build, and this is how I want to build it. And this is where the different streams under which I will be spending money. I think that's the type of answer that will give us comfort in saying, look, this is closer to a 250K or closer to a 500K. So that's actually something I'll reverse back to you, Sawan. So I think the second part of that is, answering specific kind of spaces and sectors is something maybe I don't want to kind of jump into. I think in general, we have a few sectors that you said, and if we get into that, then we'll just really start opening up quite a few. We might start doing the applications here, but I think what I wanted to say was just in general, consumer businesses are exciting. I think we've always been very partial to consumer businesses. We've always enjoyed consumer businesses. And our goal is to kind of evaluate each startup on the merits of the business that's being built. So an Indian online jewelry business, I won't be able to say much without understanding, why is this a special way of doing it? What kind of jewelry, who are you selling to, where are you selling it? So I think all of that, there's no shortcut answer to this question, unfortunately. So I would love to kind of go through a deck, go through understanding, in detail what this means, and then give it due consideration before kind of telling you the view on Waterbridge's perspective.
Awesome. And I'll just take this is one question in the chat from Niaz Mohammed about single founder. I think we answered that before, that we have no positive or negative biases, and would once again encourage you to read the 2 notes that we have put out. It's also on our website. We've tried to put together a list of all FAQs on our website. So please do peruse them before you begin to start out your application process. And yep, I think that's a wrap on our first AMA for Fast Forward, and less than 48 hours to go. Thank you so much to everyone once again, to all of you. And I really hope that this AMA actually converts to you making a Fast Forward application, and hope to see some of your names against the founder name in our applications. Once again, feel free to head to our website to read what we've put out on LinkedIn. Just follow us on LinkedIn so that you'll be aware of all updates with regard to Fast Forward, and head to our websites where our emails are published, and feel free to reach out for anything. But thank you so much once again for your time, and look forward to meeting you on Zoom via the Fast Forward application. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.